Hello everyone, Tina here. I hope your day is going fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me. Now today it's release day for C&CT Stamp. They have a brand new release called Believe in You, and I get to play with one of the new stamp sets from that release. This stamp set is called Clean Line Every Day, and it's 4x6 stamp set, but it has a lot of larger sentiments on here for almost every occasion, and then there's smaller ones too that can coordinate with the larger sentiments. The nice thing about the larger sentiments is the clean lines that these have. They're not thick or bold, they're very thin lined. So true to the name of the stamp set, which is again is called Clean Line Every Day. Okay, we're going to jump in and make a project using the stamp set. There's happy birthday in here, there's good luck, congrats, miss you, love you, and with sympathy. Those are all the larger sentiments. And I thought we would use the safe travels and stamp that all over a background panel that's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. I'm using the C&CT Stamp Barely Beige ink, and hindsight, I should have used a darker gray or a darker warm gray ink, because when I finished this, you couldn't even see it. This ink is great for no-line watercoloring, and it pulled back so much you couldn't even see it by the time I had finished my background. So you could probably completely skip this step or use a slightly darker shade of warm gray ink for the background. Okay, I'm going to create a butterfly background using the Beautiful Day stamp set. This came from a C&CT Stamp kit. It is sold individually. It's a larger stamp set, and I'll link it down below. But to create my background, I'm going to start off by creating some masks using a couple of the butterflies from this stamp set. The stamp set is again called Beautiful Day. I love the butterflies in here, and I thought butterflies went really well with the safe travel sentiment because butterflies travel and they are so pretty. So just using my scissors, I'll fussy cut out my little post-it note here. Post-it tape, actually. It's not a post-it note. I just layered a few pieces together. I'll just separate them with my craft pick, and so we have lots of masks to cover up our butterflies on our background panel. We're going to jump in and do some stamping using some VersaFine Onyx Black ink. I'm going to start off by stamping the largest butterfly I have here and stamp this 3 times on my background. I chose VersaFine Onyx Black ink because it is a nice solid crisp black ink, and I didn't want the ink to transfer to my masking paper there, so I'm going to dry it with my heat gun. And then after this is nice and dried, I'm going to go ahead and cover up each one of my butterflies with the mask that we created for them. My husband's on the porch right now. He is fixing it up for the summer. He's going to actually repaint it. We have a wraparound porch, and so he's out there with the saw fixing a few of the banisters that were cracked. So I'm sorry if you hear the saw going in the background. Okay, after we have those masks covered, we're going to take the smaller butterfly and stamp this, filling in our background panel here. Just kind of twisting and turning our acrylic blocks so we have butterflies in all different angles. We'll stamp it one more time on top here and a few over the edges. In this stamp set, there's also 2 small silhouettes of butterflies, and we're going to use those as well. So this entire background is going to be completely filled. I'm going to go ahead and dry this and take my smaller mask and cover up each one of those smaller butterflies. The bottom 2 I didn't have masks for, but we can fix that in just a minute. For the silhouette butterflies, I'm going to be using an MFT ink. This is called Blue Yonder. I wanted to create a real pretty indigo blue background. We'll just fill in some open areas, kind of overlapping on the larger butterflies. And then we'll take the smallest butterfly and take a darker ink. This ink here is an MFT ink called After Midnight. And we'll just stamp this a few times as well. Just twisting and turning, filling in those open areas. At this point, that Barely Beige ink pulled back so much you couldn't even tell that I stamped it. Okay, I'm going to take the mask from the very top one and add that to the bottom and just add one more of the darker blue butterflies. Okay, now we're going to clean up our desk here and remove all of our masks, and the butterflies we stamped with the VersaFine Onyx Black ink, I'm going to use some Copic markers to color in. And I think that just looks gorgeous. Kind of creating our homemade pattern paper here. The 3 colors of Copic markers that I'm using are for the smallest butterfly. I used 3 different colors, starting with B12. I went in, that's my lightest color. B18 is my darkest color, and my mid-tone is B14. And I used those 3 colors to color in all the smaller butterflies here. And I didn't do much ink blending with them, only because the butterflies were sectioned off, so they were pretty easy to color in. But after they are colored in, I'm going to take 2 more shades of blue in different colors. I have a B41 here, it's the lightest blue, and then I also have a darker blue that's B45, and I'll just use these 2 colors to color in my larger butterfly. Once all my coloring is done, I think it looks fantastic, and it looks, to me it looks very dimensional, and maybe in the close-up pictures you'll be able to see that. But I'm going to take a double stitch rectangle die. I thought a smaller panel would be nice, leaving a little bit of a border, but I thought the pattern was so pretty, I'm going to take a larger double stitch die and cut out a panel that's 4 inches by 5 1/4. And then while I was at it, I was afraid my sentiment would be kind of lost with that busy background, so I took a piece of vellum that was slightly smaller and trimmed down a piece there. We're going to cover our background panel, kind of toning down that blue. But I'm going to stamp the sentiment. It says Safe Travels on black cardstock with VersaFine, no I'm not, with Versamark ink, and then I'm going to go over it with my white embossing powder. Just use my heat gun and go ahead and melt that. And you can see the very fine lines of the larger sentiments. And I think that looks so neat. All of the sentiments in the stamp set, in the Clean Line Everyday stamp set, are very are block letters. They're not scripty. Okay, now we're going to do a little bit more stamping. I'm going to stamp the largest butterfly that we stamped for our background panel, and then also the little 3-leaf image in the stamp set. I'm using Memento ink just because it dries faster and I can use my Copic markers with it. For my leaves, I'll use 2 different shades of green. I have a YG61 for my lightest green, and then I did a little shading with my YG63. And then for my butterfly, I used the same colors that I used for my background panel, the B41 and the B45. And then I did bring in a little bit of the gray. I used a C1 marker, so 3 shades just to tone it down a little bit. After my images are all colored in, I did take my scissors and fussy cut them all out. I left a little bit of a white border around all of my images. It was just easier with those leaves, having that one thin line of borders help. Okay, and I also trimmed down my Safe Travel sentiment too. Okay, I wanted to complete the sentiment by adding the smaller sentiment that says See You Soon. So I'm going to stamp that with my Blue Yonder ink on some white cardstock, and then using a small circle die, I'm going to cut out my sentiment. And I wanted the sentiment to be on the bottom portion of my circle. And so we'll just tape this down and run this through the die cut machine. And then all of our elements are ready to create our card. We're going to start off by adhering our background panel to a standard A2 size card base. The card base size is a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch. It's a top folding card base. And you can see here I have a little bit of a white border around there. I like that on my card bases. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and place my vellum over my panel there. And then I'm going to add some foam squares behind my butterfly, just one in the center. This way I can fluff up the wings. And then I'll add them behind my leaves and also my safe travel sentiment. I wanted to tuck the top half of the circle underneath my black sentiment here. So I had to remove one of my foam squares. And I think that's going to look great. I'm just going to add one more piece in that section that was missing, so everything is nice and flush. And then I'll go ahead and attach my sentiment to the vellum along with my butterfly and then my two leaves. Just kind of figuring out my placement here. And for this last leaf, the top leaf I tucked over the sentiment, and this bottom one I want to tuck underneath. So I trimmed it down just a little bit. I'm going to adjust the butterfly a little bit more, making sure I don't cover up my sentiment here. And I think that looks great. So we'll take our vellum and flip it over, and I'm going to, if you wanted to use your tape runner, you could do that, but I just had my glue on my desk, so I'm going to add glue behind all of the areas that have my stamped images, and we'll just secure that to our background panel. When it's secured directly on top, the colors are softened, but you could still see them. I think it's pretty. Okay, I'm going to bring in some bells and whistles. I'm using some Honeybee Stamps Bubble Bath Mini Domes. They're itty bitty little mini bubbles. I'm going to add a few here and there. There's a little iridescent hue to them too, so it picks up that blue really pretty. After we have that done, I'm going to bring in my Nuvo Aqua Shimmer Pen and add some sparkle. Originally, I was just going to add it to the butterfly, and I like the sparkle, so I thought we're going to add it to the leaves as well. Just shiny those up. And I think that looks really pretty. You can see a little sparkle there. Since I have little tiny bubbles in there, I thought we'd add a few little drops of glossy accents to the circles on the upper butterfly wings, and then the teardrops on the bottom portion of the butterfly wings, and then also to the butterfly body. And then that completes my card today, guys. The Believe in You release is so fantastic. I'll leave a link down below in the description if you want to check out the entire release over at the Simon shop, or even if you want to check out this stamp set. Again, it's the Clean Line Everyday Stamp Set. I'll link that down below as well, along with the Butterfly Stamp Set. I thank you so much for joining me, guys. I wish you a fantastic day, and we will see you again real soon. Bye-bye.